Well, today is quite a different day. I'd say the first thing that you should definitely check to see if your roommate has already returned for the day.
I have no roommate.
Because if not, they will definitely make quite an entrance at some point. I would say number two, make sure that there are no firecrackers popping the fuck off outside. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, fuck you too.
All right, well, welcome to Brother Sip
That's the opening of something sipping.
and Talk Shit, where we talk all things horror and foreign films. Today is a special edition, one would say, because we are actually doing an evening edition. Usually we do this bright and early over a cup of coffee.
Good evening.
Usually do this like 7 a.m. LA time, 10 a.m. Atlanta, Georgia time. But today we're doing it a little bit different, largely due to the state of the world. If you're not seeing how crazy things are right now, you must not be living, just living. You just have to exist to see how crazy shit is.
World's gone. What is it? The old rap line?
The world's gone mad. The world's gone mad.
World's gone mad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the world. It's a jungle outside no man can escape from, but you can't run forever. That's the line I was looking for. There we go. Mighty Mos Def.
That'll do. That'll do. Well, I'm T, and I'm way too close to where the riots happen in Atlanta. Way too close. Like 2 blocks away.
Hey, I'm V, and I'd have to say that if something did pop the fuck off, I am not prepared at all.
Things are a little different. This is evening time, so we're sipping a little bit different. Usually it's coffee. What are you sipping on today?
Ooh, this is a classic. This is that Pilsner beer from Amsterdam. You know, with the funky top, where you can like.
Oh, the green one?
Yeah, the Grosch Pilsner.
Oh, that was great. Isn't that the one we drunk like water in Amsterdam?
Yeah. It's one of those where if you're ever in Amsterdam, get a Grosch. It's like the water over there. Very nice, very smooth. I just love how when you're in another country, they're like Budweiser version of things just tastes better, and it makes you realize how poor quality Americans are.
Yeah, our beer is trash. But that being said, I'm drinking today I am drinking a down home brew. It's actually in a local brewery, black owned, here in Atlanta, Can Indicator, Georgia. I'm drinking the Tea Palm Pomegranate Wheat Ale. Think Blue Moon, only gone pomegranate. I'm buying black today.
What is it like? Heineken? Is that the closest thing to equate this beer to?
No, it's Heineken wishes it was like that.
Ah, yes.
That's the better
I'm
thing.
drinking what Heineken wishes is like. It's
Exactly.
like,
It's different.
oh man, that was I am thinking of only just terrible things to say about America. All my witty jokes.
I mean, it's wild because I wouldn't even be surprised if like our actual reviews were like short as hell, and most of these turn into a state of affairs talk. But I guess we'll just see how it goes.
Can we just run back intros one more time? I feel like saying some current event stuff is lame. I always like when we talk about movies. So let's just do it again.
No,
Just for funsies real quick.
I'm not doing it again because this is real life.
Get him back.
Wait, we're on the horror movie one anyway. So life is horror. So we're just gonna have to stick with that. So
it's a horrifying. He said the greatest horror genre
is real life
in America.
Exactly, it's real life.
I'm sorry. There's gonna be at least for like the first 20 minutes. I'm gonna have tons of just. Well, you know what? That's life in America.
That's what it is. So to be honest, these were like the 2 hardest ones for me to watch, and it's largely because of everything that was going on. That's a crazy thing to say.
Not to go into our like personal lives, but I'd say there's just a lot of stuff going on this weekend personally, and then the world decided to just like take a nuclear dump, which just made me not want to, dive into some interesting movies. It made me want to more just like think. But you know what? We made it to today.
Barely.
We watched both films barely before the end of the day, but we did it. You know what? We persevered, just like my people have for 300 years in this country.
400, if you want to count the 100 years we're behind. Yeah, I mean.
Oh, I thought who's keeping track? I thought we were on the up and up the last 100.
Man, it's over, so there's no need to talk about it anymore. That's what I heard.
Let's get into the movie. So this is an interesting pick. I think I'm gonna start with the intro. We're gonna do this a little bit weird today. I'm gonna intro first on your film.
Yeah. Okay. Make sure
So
you say
this
the
was a hate
director.
pick. I just wanna let everyone know that my brother picked this out of hate. It was a spite pick, as we like to call it. Shout outs to Curb. It was a film that I guess. Wow, I don't even know how to describe this. I guess they're in hell. The four police officers take a trip to hell. I think that's the best way to describe it. But it's a foreign film that's a little bit weird because it's in Turkish, which apologize if that's not the proper way to call that native tongue. But it was distributed by Germany, but had a pretty good screening in America at like indie film festivals. So it's kind of this weird fringe thing. But the film in itself, yeah, I would say is just a four cops end up taking a trip to hell. I think that's how I would describe it. How would you go?
I would say that it is four cops that are stuck in a hell loop, and they start off at a like restaurant where they're eating food. They get a call about another event happening in a town over. They go race over to the town. Some weird things happen right before they head there. They end up crashing into a lake. They all get out of there, get out of the lake, and end up heading into a home in the city where there's another vehicle there. And they go basically to inspect the house. They find another officer there who's beating his head up against a wall. Things are real creepy, real odd looking. They all eventually end up getting captured, and I guess we'll get more into that as we go along.
The
And
irony of this film is that all the cops are in hell because that's where they belong. The ha, the ha ha.
I guess
It's too funny.
that's
The
that's our
irony in this
tie-in this
film.
week. That's our tie-in this week.
Yeah,
It's weird because
it's
our incidental tie-in this week is actually a little bit more interesting than I thought it was. I think I'll wait for the 36 chamber to go ahead and
Yeah,
say
I'd
how.
be interested to hear what we always try to like justify the weird connection between two films are, because you always get a theme, which is kind of cool when you do this. Even though everything's pretty random, you're still able to find a theme, which is so cool. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, can we just like start at the ending? I feel like I always say the same thing. Is
You
like, can we
you
just
want
start at the ending?
you want to start at the ending? It's cool. Technically, the movie starts at the ending.
Yeah,
You're
so they
always in
did
the ending, so
this.
it's always in the beginning.
Yeah.
Side note: this film was originally a 13-minute short film. I'm gonna check it out. I haven't watched it again. The state of affairs made it so
Oh,
I
really?
didn't do
This
it.
was an extended version
Yes.
of a
So
idea. Oh,
the
I
same
love that.
thing. Same
Love
thing
that. So
happened
indie.
with Mother. I saw the actual original version of Mother before it was called Monster. Same as Babadook was actually called Monster, and I saw the short film version of that. I've tried to go on my way to see any version of a short film that was made of anything we watched. This one again got away from me, but I want to see what happened. A couple of the actors that are actually in this came back and reprised their roles.
Oh, really? Yeah, this was so I guess the first thing I want to talk about, maybe you can describe this. I just watched the film, like just finished 15 minutes ago. So a lot of stuff's really fresh and confusing. So
Great.
I just want to like baseline what I think the storyline was, and then can you just like back me up with like actual empirical evidence through the internet and other, within your like mind bank
Certainly.
of things. So I I guess the scene, they open up in this restaurant and it seems like there's this like person haunting them. This person I'm assuming is some form of gatekeeper to another realm. And then they push them towards this other realm, which ends up being this like kind of hell house thing. And then they enter the hell house, all shit starts fucking breaking loose. There's like all this weird like sexual grotesque things going on and like
Half animal, half
half
BDSM
yeah,
slash. Yeah, it's
all
nutty.
this weird stuff. And then this really weird character appears, and it's the first person that's evil that takes off his like cloak, and he apparently looks like that in real life because I had to Google it because like he's so creepy, but that's exactly what he looks like in real life, which I love that
Right.
when people are just who they are.
Right.
It's all natural, and then it starts becoming this like weird ritual ceremony to unite two realms, possibly hell and earth, maybe opening up gates, maybe trying to summon demons. I don't know. Then somehow all the cops die in very grotesque ways, by the way. I'll let you detail that in a moment. And then somehow the main character, who ironically is the virgin of this horror, if I would have to say, because he's the best looking, I guess, and he is able to stop this dude with some magical key that I have no idea where he got it from. He then scurries out of the Hell House barely, which you think in a very triumphant, and he gets hit by a car. Come to find out that car were the police officers to begin with because they hit a person at the beginning of the film, and it creates this time loop. So are they always in hell? And this is just what hell is for them because they're cops?
For all intents and purposes, to sum it up, they are in a hell loop. They stumble into hell and end up going through the loop. My guess is they probably died in the car accident, but then it kind of pushed back the loop to keep it going. That's my first summation. I think the first couple of people that they run into this really tall guy, a woman, a little girl, and this mentally challenged gentleman. And he actually, and it's crazy because it seems that when you look at movies like Midsummer, there's always this connection that people with mental deficiencies end up being more in connection with a spiritual world or extra realm. And he sort of joked about them being in the wrong place, or they're finally being here, and him laughing at it. So he was the most knowledgeable character and was almost giving him a whole bunch, but they were kind of offsetting him, trying to toss him to the side, not really pay attention to him. All in all, yes, it is a time loop with a couple of mini hell loops in there, so we'll assume they step past purgatory. One thing that does happen in this film is they keep on ending up back in the restaurant that they started with less people than what they started with. There's 5 cops. I'm going to kind of like sum them up just on what their character is. The names might get you lost. The most important ones I think are Apo and the boss, the Chief Ramsey. And those are the 2 ones I'll only keep you with. The other 3 guys, one of them seems to be a compulsive gambler. The other one just seems to be like just kind of lazy, kind of a bum. The other one is the guy who's like talking about all his sex stories and about how great he is. He goes into this whole story about how he had gotten this woman that looked like a model, found out that she was transsexual, still had sex with her, and he was joking about it. Then somebody in the restaurant came at the table and laughed with him, and then he spazzed on the guy that was laughing. He was like, "Are you trying to say I'm gay?" Like the weird toxic masculinity in there. All types of nutty stuff for him to detach it like that. And he was just a degenerate type of guy. When they all end up getting to the Hell House, the lazy guy ends up just getting wrapped up and dies really quickly trying to run away because he's just a bumbling idiot. The gambler dude ends up getting knocked upside the head, and then his guts end up getting pulled out slowly and then given to a whole bunch of these like weird, I don't know, murder creatures, whatever you want to call them.
Hermerculi?
Hellions? Hellions?
Hellions?
Yeah, we'll
Yes,
go with
let's
Hellions.
Hellions.
Right? These are Hellions to give his guts. The boss and we'll call the young guy, so Ramsey and Apo, they have a connection. It seems that Ramsey more or less took care of Apo when he was younger as a kid, kind of brought him in and then brought him into the police force. Sort of father figure, kind of regulating these dudes, but also seems a little bit more passive, a little bit more prayerful. He's playing with a lot of prayer beads in the beginning when he's in the restaurant. When they first go back to the restaurant, it's only the boss and Apo, the younger gentleman, they're having a conversation again. It just kind of cuts into it. After they've had this car accident, it goes right back to them being at the restaurant, and they're talking about it, they're discussing things, and the young guy starts telling a story about he had a friend when he was younger that saw his father die, and he swore he saw his soul come out the body, and they made this promise that one of us dies, we come to the other one, his ghost, just to let us know it's real or something like that. That ends up being an important tie-in. They end up going back to where they at, getting sucked back to the little torture area they at, and everybody slowly gets killed. The degenerate guy has the most interesting death. We'll call the guy the gatekeeper, the weird looking guy.
He seemed very gatekeeper to me.
Very gatekeeper.
He had like a whole gold chain of just locks, man.
Yeah, chains and locks and a keyhole on his forehead. So we'll call him the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is like enthralled with him and thinks that he could be like the chosen one for whatever this little ritual thing is going on. And part of it is he's telling him he needs to see beyond sight and everything like that. And he ends up cutting his eyes out. And he tells him they're at a crossroad. They're trying to bring these areas closer together. The realms are touching. And I don't think it's that the hell realm is crossing over into real life. I think it's just that they went to a place where hell and earth were kind of touching. So they kind of were like passing through that gateway, and they just happened to catch it on a bad day. And he's blinded, and then he's forced to fuck this. They show an image of it earlier on the wall, but then it actually comes out. We'll almost call it like this chimera that has like a goat, empty goat head, and they're trying to get the gambler guy to fuck her, and I guess he can't get up. But I mean, if I just got my eyes cut out, I don't think I'd be the best performer in bed. And then they end up just slitting his throat and killing him. And then they say that the young guy may actually be, he seems like the more pure one, and he might actually be the one that can do whatever this thing is. Boss Ramsey guy is like, no, don't mess with him, whatever it is. Even though they think the kid is the key, they end up killing the boss guy. The older father figure ends up getting killed, and then they shoot into the loop again, and they're back at the restaurant. And it's just the young guy and the old guy, and the old guy's bleeding out in the same fashion that he was killed at the thing. And he ends up pulling a key out of his throat and giving it to the kid, and more or less it's like saying that he's like the purest one, so he kind of has the key to get out of here. He has the ability. They end up back into the little horror hell thing. The gatekeeper comes up to the kid because he's getting ready to either take his eyeballs out or make him fuck the chimera thing, and he ends up stabbing the key. The young kid ends up stabbing the key into the gatekeeper's head. The gatekeeper ends up like falling to the ground. Kid gets down, and he ends up to proceed to beat his face to a bloody pulp. Like he beats the gatekeeper to a bloody pulp.
Like a beautiful with a stepping stool, like a wooden stepping stool, and it was very one of the, I'd say probably top shots of the film right there.
Yeah,
easily top shot of the film was he puts that key in, and the minute the gatekeeper fell on the ground, he did not hesitate to grab that stool and start swinging. There was no hesitation between, he's on the ground. He immediately grabbed that stool and started just wailing at him, which I respect people who, believe in the rules of double tapping.
Got to double tap.
Too bad for him. He then just walks up the stairs and gets hit by a car, and he's been in hell the whole time. So I guess that is his hell. He can't even get out of it. Which, it was like a pretty depressing ending.
But he really was feeling himself when he got out. But I mean, I guess it just goes to show they were probably all terrible. They were probably all terrible in some way, and I think it's something that's probably really understated in there. He ends up back in the hell loop. Like, he even comes back to the very beginning of the movie is showing him as a kid and hearing his mother scream in a room and him thinking he sees somebody in the house, and then it cuts to the future in the restaurant. He actually ends up walking into his house with him as a little kid, and you find out the little ominous creature that was walking in there was probably the same gatekeeper guy.
Very ominous.
Yeah, and he kept on showing up. There's an earlier scene where we'll call the dopey guy.
Sleep's not gonna be very good tonight. I can feel it.
For you, I could understand. For me, I'm like, So
it's body horror, dude. Body horror with like an indescriptive villain and a storyline that is semi-vague. I'm just like, lets my mind try to put too many things together, Man, that movie was kind of heavy now I'm thinking about it, like 15 minutes later.
I guess because it's fresh. What they said is that everything ends where when they wake up, every time they sleep or they phase out and they pass out, it goes over. So it's basically every time they lose consciousness, they go back to consciousness. They more or less go back and forth through these loops. And I don't even call it loop as much as jumps, because it kind of jumps back and forth. You're not stuck where they go through the entire thing. They're not Groundhog Day in it. Just a back and forth flip-flop through things.
What does the internet say about this film?
Time loops on this one, it's just the time loop in hell. While I was going through it, one of the things I was looking at is that it's a Turkish film, so there's a lot of Turkish folklore, a lot of things that are a little bit more specific to the culture, and sometimes that makes movies a little bit more difficult but fun in its own way. I think the one thing that stuck with me the most with that were like frogs. and frogs aren't usually bad in American folklore. In a lot of the folklore there, frogs are like bringers of doom. Like it means bad shit is about to go down. So that was probably the biggest thing that I noticed that was
Wait,
really,
wait, wait, wait,
yeah.
wait. Frogs are bringers of doom. I gotta understand the mythos behind this. Please tell me you have the Wikipedia page open and you can describe it.
No, it's just it's different things. They represent bringers of doom. It's just the same thing you get when you smell it's gonna rain, and you see something that's about to happen. Like we look at black cats and stuff like that. For
Yeah,
those for
and
those folklore things, seeing a whole bunch of frogs is usually some bad shit's going down.
he did a good job of making frogs seem like they weren't cool creatures. I would definitely say I got that vibe that I shouldn't be fucking with frogs. Like
It's the same
every
thing.
time every time a frog was around, someone was like, ah!
Right.
Just started losing their mind out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, why is this man spazzing? Yeah,
It's crazy. One of the other things was when dudes started spazzing in the mirror, and
just yelling.
yeah, but
You
in
just you
Turkish
felt like me
folklore,
after you felt like me after on a Wednesday after work. That's what I feel like
true.
doing, just yelling into a mirror.
Yeah, he just yelled, and everybody was like, "Yo, dog, you good?"
It's like, yeah.
but in Turkish
Blue
folklore,
lives
when
matter.
you
That's what he says. That's what he said. Blue lives matter.
but it's stupid. In Turkish folklore, when you look yourself in the mirror at night, you see your true character. So his shit had to be awful.
That's another like folklore thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Absolutely.
I kind of get. I actually, now that you mention it, that is like I got those vibes, and that tells you that he just did like a good job, like to translate those. Like
Mm-hmm.
always fascinated when foreign filmmakers can make something very customary, like the rice cake girl thing from Mother. Like no
Mm-hmm.
way I'd
Mm-hmm.
understand that, but he was able to just like quickly describe it, no big deal, like keep it moving, and that's a good sign of a great film. Is that even cultural things that you may not understand are easily translatable
Right. Right.
with the language barrier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you put the right sense of atmosphere to things, you don't necessarily need to explain them at all, which I think is good. I think it's good. All in all, it was interesting. Just a loop about hell. Maybe or
No,
maybe not
I
he
want to know.
broke
I
the
want to
hell.
ask the question. No, I need to ask the question. I
Mm-hmm.
gotta ask you a real question. Why'd you hate pick me with this? Why did you do that? Why'd you do body
Honestly,
horror? You know I don't fuck with body horror.
I'm gonna give
Why'd
you
you
an
do it?
honest answer. When I thought back and thought of the film, I had that. What do you call it? Like the Streisand effect. When I went back and watched this film, I was like, this shit wasn't that crazy. It was nowhere near what I thought it was. It was some wild imagery, like weird imagery, with just the BDSM sex room and stuff like that, and the way people looked. But the worst parts were like the guy getting his eye poked out. Honestly, besides that, they were very like meh deaths, like getting your stomach poked into and having guts pulled out. Man, I've seen the Ballad of Ricky O. Like that's nothing.
You just wanted an excuse to bring up Serbian film. That's all.
No, I haven't. No,
Yeah,
I've seen
I want to
Serbian
say
film,
this
but
now.
I wasn't. I
I want
wasn't.
to
I'm
say
not
this.
gonna do that.
I gotta put this out there. I say this right now. If we ever get 10K followers, I will watch Serbian film with a double feature of another film that we have to figure out that is at the same
Jesus
level,
Christ.
and I will do a live stream review.
Yeah, that's what you do. You do a live stream. You do a live stream review, and I'm just gonna sit in the background, not
A
watching the
live
film, talking about. I told
stream
you shit was bad.
reaction
He said so.
of that.
So
If we ever
10.
get to 10,000, I don't even know
So
what I signed myself up for.
so 10k 10k subscribers. You'll go ahead and watch Serbian film. That's awful. That's awful.
That is awful. But I need to make it a double feature, so we got to find something else that either is like happy or balance it out.
No, you just gotta find something that's truly hopeless. That's what you gotta find. That's wild. The movie's not that complicated. This isn't one of those deeper stories with a lot of things to watch. There's a lot of symbolism in it, but it's very straightforward. There's a lot of talk of the young guy's friend that I was referencing earlier that had died when he was a kid, had died in a car accident. They possibly died in a car accident. His parents died in a car accident. So there was some weird overlying thing going on with that. Like it always got tied into those accidents. So he actually died there. When they crashed the car, it was off the side of a bridge. So there's always that idea if they were taking that bridge into the other realm, sort of they were crossing over that way. Interesting. It's interesting, so to speak.
It
There's
was
a
an
lot more
interest. Yeah,
stuff.
I would say it is definitely interesting because of the symbolism you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It is like of all the films we've watched, I think this was the most indie of them all so far. The script isn't incredibly complicated. Just watch this camera angle and interpret it the best you can. I guess maybe not made the indie, but maybe the most artistic. Is that a better
Mm-hmm.
way to say it?
Yeah, and I would even call it the most. I guess from the ones we reviewed, because I thought Babadook was more artistic. The gray tones that went on it, the colors in that were just so definitive. I will say that there are a couple of visuals in there that may lead to that. When they first get into the Hell House, when they're walking through the Hell House, it has almost like the best way I could think of describing it is akin
Oh,
to
by
like
the
a
way, guys, hold on a second. The Hell House was a police station. Yes, it
no,
was.
no, it wasn't.
It was. It was an old abandoned Ottoman
Oh,
Empire
you're
police
right. You
station.
know what? Correction. I very guess you are correct. You are correct. It was an old abandoned police station, so that is kind of. So yeah, I guess that is their own personal hell. What better place to start hell off than a police station for police?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was automatic. Thank you for that correction. Baskin, as indie as it was, I'm more curious to see the short film because if the short film is better, then I would probably feel different about this film.
Well,
So
I think this was first and foremost. I want to thank myself for recommending it to you.
yeah, you did recommend it
Back
years ago.
you back in the day when I used to be very very connected in the know of the internet. This came up on a blog about being this like very odd horror film. Is it a horror film? You gotta see. You just gotta watch it. It's weird, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad we ended up watching it together eventually. This
Mm-hmm.
is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first question you kind of sort of answered, but I'm gonna ask it again. What do you think was like the biggest cultural thing that you want to do like more research on? Because it seemed like you didn't quite get it, but it was just interesting enough that you're like, I'm gonna dig into that a little bit more.
Most of the writings and things that went on, actually, the one thing that resonated with me the most is that there was writing on the stool that the gatekeeper stood on to get in everybody's face, the one he was eventually killed with. There was writing on it. And to be honest, that's stuck in my head that I feel like lost in translation. It may have said something that I would have been like, ah. There was
Gotcha,
some just
gotcha,
etched
gotcha.
on the stool, but that's stuck in my head. 100%.
Okay,
Out
okay.
of all things, that's what stuck in my head the most.
Maybe there isn't one, but what American film you think this director and writer was influenced by to make this? Yeah, do you see any like any influences to the classic horrors that you think may have influenced this film? And I ask that because again, you have seen way more horror films, so I'm kind of curious if perhaps what were some of his influences for this kind of style?
In my opinion, I would lean to Hellraiser is the first thing I thought about. I think that immediately because of the imagery. I look at it, I see that type of Clive Barker esque stuff going on. It always takes me back to like the Cenobites. A lot of people always, I feel that's exactly where a lot of that imagery, almost as Hell House stuff, came. And then it's almost Groundhog Day-ish,
Really?
but it's not Groundhog Day-ish because I don't think it's a traditional time loop because they only jump back to certain spots and then come back there. The most influential, I'll say, is definitely Hellraiser. Not
Right.
because I say the
Um,
loop is so erratic that it doesn't really count for that, so to speak.
okay, and then give me your rating, man. You know the last thing.
Rating, to be honest, after seeing this a second time, a hard one. A hard one. And it's odd for me to say, but after seeing a movie that I thought I liked a lot more when I went back and see it again, it didn't do it for me the same way. There was a lot of wasted potential in this movie, which
Oh,
I,
really?
I don't I don't I don't think you expect me to say.
This is
So I'll go to
odd.
it.
This is
So
this is unexpected. This is I am literally like speechless. This
yeah,
is A
Yeah,
one? You give this film a one?
I won. I really
I thought
wouldn't
this would be right up
bother.
your alley.
It's if I'm gonna offer somebody torture porn, I want to give them torture porn with either more meaning or more levels of creativity to it. The torture porn stuff was just too kind of just for the sake of. I'm not gonna say human centipede esque because that's just a whole nother level, and I won't do that to you anytime soon.
If you
But
keep just naming films, I'm gonna stop saying I haven't seen that in the hopes that you don't notice that I haven't seen these
oh,
films.
I know you.
On
I
my
know you
list.
haven't seen Human Centipede because there would have been a request for no Human Centipede. All three of them. If we do that, you gotta do.
There's three of them. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah. I couldn't finish one of them. I
you
couldn't.
couldn't finish one of
I
them.
couldn't finish one of them. I told myself I'm gonna go back and do it one day, but I couldn't finish one of them. So there's torture porn for the sake of like torture porn. There was a couple really good shots, and unfortunately the rest of the film doesn't live up to those shots. When they first crash and he sort of like ends up back in the restaurant and he's talking to the boss and he's telling you that he feels something wrong and he feels that somebody's in there and he's felt like he's been through this loop before because the boss is the first person to recognize that they're in this loop. Water starts coming out from underneath the young guy's hands and he ends up falling back into water and sort of is climbing back up. Think Snatch, where Brad Pitt gets knocked out and he's seeing his own body and he's climbing back up to it in the water. Same way it looked in like Shape of Water, that sort of thing where he's crawling back out and there's like these giant hands that are bigger than him, like the size of his body that almost look like they could pick him up with his thumb and his finger coming out. And it's such a good thing. And then they just wake back up in the water when they're walking through the police station. Now that we've clarified that, and the reds outside of the window are so vibrant, they're almost Dario Argento esque. And I don't think you know who Dario Argento is yet, but you
I
will
was, I was, I
definitely
was gonna say,
he
what art gallery were you hanging out with some hipsters, buddy? I'm supposed to be that one. What half Vietnamese,
no.
half. He's not even like can't even say
No,
half Haitian. What
he's
half
Italian.
Haitian,
He's
half
Italian.
Vietnamese,
He's he's
southern
Italian.
gentleman were you hanging out with that put you onto this?
He is he's a Italian filmmaker. He is extremely famous. He's known for a certain type of films. They're called giallo films. Is this era that started, I think, really to hit off in like the 60s or 70s, where there's always these vibrant imagery and this artistic look to things. And Dario Argento is hands down the best at it. I've seen a few of his films. I'm going to eventually get through his whole spiel, but he has a lot. Number one film though that he has, to me, my personal favorite is Suspiria. And if you ever saw Suspiria, and I would hold off onto that until you actually get to watch Suspiria, the opening scene filled with such vibrant colors and everything like that, I got that feel. So I got a little sprinkle of him getting a little giallo films in there, a little bit of the Clive Barker-esque film in there. So there's a whole bunch of these could be, but not really. Even the character, the gatekeeper, was really creepy. Open interpretation with him dying with the key, but wasn't really dying from the key. I think him getting killed with the key was sort of reaffirming that the kid had the evil in him too when he beat him to death. Just in a loop. It's sad to go back and watch a film a second time and be like, that wasn't as good as I thought it was. It really wasn't as good as I thought it was.
You're having that Dan Harmon octopus moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
Dan Harmon octopus.
That's exactly what it was. There was some excellent quotes in there. There's some excellent things that, like, when they're getting a little shook at the place they're at, the like scared cop is getting a little shook there. They start singing their national anthem, and their national anthem, it says "Fear Not," and that's always real interesting to me. Like, it's just there's a lot of these bits and pieces, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make a full meal for me at the end. My questions then, since we're running there,
Yeah, I gotta do a
what
review first. You know, I
yeah,
gotta do
go
a
ahead.
review first.
What's your
That
review?
shit is a one because I don't fucking do horror. Every fucking anything with body horror, I'm gonna give it a one because I'm never gonna fucking watch it again. Like,
It's possible
that
to get you to a
that
one with body horror that you'd be like, that was still a
yeah.
great film. But I knew
That
this
being
wasn't gonna be that
said,
one.
though, I feel you where I'm saying it's a one, but I don't want to like discount that there was some interesting things going on. It wasn't a complete bore, but again, it has that like the storyline really doesn't make much sense. There's a lot of like it's almost like abstract art. I would say
But it's not
there was
too
some.
abstract because I get
It's
it,
not.
but
It's yeah. It's kind of the. I think what was more abstract is like what. Where is this gonna end? And then you're like, oh, it's a loop. Oh, there is no ending. That makes sense why it was so like vague in what's gonna happen.
and kind of
So,
jagged with his
um,
storytelling. Yeah.
yeah, I give it a one. I'd say there's definitely like you said, lots of potential here. On the plus side, even though it is one, it is perfectly at that 1.5 hour mark, which I always love when horror movies do that. Hit the rules of horror. So that was kind of cool.
All right. So first, like, what were the cultural faux pas? I'll give you that thing. What were the thing where you're like, I don't quite get this?
Oh, the music, bruh. You know, they all
Oh, they were
started
jamming in the
dancing.
car.
They were jamming in the
Yeah.
car. I didn't even know what
Yeah.
track that is, bro. It was fire.
Yeah. I
I
forgot
was
to
about to
Shazam it. I was
Shazam
going
it,
to
yo.
Shazam it too.
I
They
swear
started
to
getting
God,
down. They had
I was
the
gonna,
crazy. They were doing
yeah.
the clap
It was
snaps.
like that was like that Ti Young Thug song, you know. That they were just about to. What's the name? If it ain't about the money, they said that it ain't about the money. Like
They were
in the band, just
jamming.
vibing
They
out,
were getting down.
jamming. I
And
was like, I gotta know that
and
song.
then they hit their own man's and crashed into a lake.
Yeah,
But they
yeah,
was
it
jamming.
was pretty bad. But I would say culturally, the music and also just in general, I did enjoy. I actually like the soundtrack the most of this. It was because it had a wide range of genres, which I think made it super interesting. And again, it gives me like an excuse to go find some random artists that are a little bit more foreign, give me something to do. So I'd say that's number one, and then number two was the frogs. I got to know more about these frogs, dude, because
Fair enough.
they went really out of their way to make frogs look like fucking evil. Like essentially, I would say what like crows in our culture,
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah, that's what it
you
is.
know,
That I
yeah,
definitely give you that. That's probably the best imagery I could say when it came
yeah.
with
It's
that.
kind of like it's kind of like the crow. So I think that that concept's actually so cool. I actually wrote it down as just like something to come back to when I'm writing at a later date to just like expand on that idea because I like the idea of like frogs being this sign of death. Nonetheless, still a one. Sorry, folks.
Question number two: what was your top shot in there? Like what do you think top visual?
So glad. Awesome. I can talk about all three. So I'd say that their use of blue and red light was pretty cool in this, particularly when they first get to the rundown police station. There is another police car with its siren on, so it's like changing from blue to red. You can't quite see the cop car, but it's the blue and red is flashing their faces back and forth. So people's faces are turning blue and then red and then dark, blue and then red and then dark. And I thought that that was a great use of the blues and reds. They were using a lot of those. I'd say number two, I'm starting to notice something in horror films that I'd like to talk to you about is the use of like water or fire. Is there any film that uses both? I feel like they either
Yeah,
go one or the other.
most of the ones I've seen, and I'll go back and try to do it, end up being ones that are either you're fighting something like really spiritual, or it's in ye olden times and it's like a farm area or something like that. So like, I've seen it a couple times. I can think of a couple things off break. Actually, one of them I had as possible on the list. So yeah.
At one point they're sitting down at the restaurant and one of these like flashbacky scenes you're calling them, creating these loops, and it's kind of everything's kind of leaking this black water, and I think this is at the point where I thought that they were like drowning. That's why it was like shooting all this black water everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a portion where the water comes out of a table that they're eating at the dining, and it seems like they definitely that's like a real that wasn't anything fake at all. Like that was black water somehow seeping over that table, and it looked really cool.
Like a really good practical effect.
Yeah, yeah, it was a
Got
really
you.
cool because it was still black. It was like just black water seeping through the table, and then they did a shot on the side where it looked as if you were the ground up at the character and you saw the water kind of passing over, falling to the ground, like making like a waterfall, and almost like a waterfall. So it was very, very interesting scenes with that. Third thing is less about like a exact angle, but man, I'm a sucker for dreamy movies, and this one definitely has that kind of dreamy feel on it.
Yeah.
So I think that even though you don't know it, you definitely picked a film that still is right up my alley, because it is like, it feels more, at times it feels more like a sci-fi film, like a sci-fi fantasy than a horror, and I did like that
Well,
aspect of it.
one thing I'll say that is definitely tied into that is that when he was talking about the dream that he has constantly when the thing had happened with his friend, he says, I had that fear in a dream, that fear that you don't understand what you're afraid of, but you know you're afraid of something. And I thought that was, I
Hella
thought that was,
relatable. Very
yeah,
relatable.
I thought that was a great thing. And I thought, again, there's so many glints of dope shit in here, and then it's just not enough for me. That talk of just having that ominous fear, that feeling of something's watching me, something's going to happen, something's terrible. And that's what they felt the entire set of the film, and everybody more or less at some point was experiencing that. And I was like I said, there are good parts of the film, but
Yeah, I mean, don't ever forget there is a lower rating. There's a zero. Okay,
I wouldn't give it zero.
there's,
That's the one, like,
there's always a low rating, so a one's not a bad thing.
I have a quick reminder. We went through all this time. I apologize. We jumped right into it. One is I'm not going to tell anybody to go see it. Two is I'll watch it again myself, maybe bring someone with me. And three is I'll tell the world about it. It's a one. It's a one.
Yeah, it's a one. Like I can, the way I think about ones is if I can only think about one person to tell this film, it's definitely a one.
Yeah.
Like, if there's only like one other person I could think of in my friend group that I'd be like, oh, they probably like this, and it's because he's like a horror buff and he's into foreign indie films. So it's like best of both.
I'd have to ask because he was bored and was trying to find something on TV, and they stopped there. I was like, yeah, you could watch it. I've seen it already. I'd rather not, but you could watch it.
Yeah, it's not anything too crazy, but it does leave some cool concepts. And again, I think it's a lot of that symbolism that they drove.
I'm putting a bet out there that the short film is probably better.
We can check it out. I mean, it's only 10 minutes of our lives.
Oh yeah, so. I think it's like 13 minutes. I think I'm going to check it out because I feel if you got that whole story across in 13 minutes, then it was probably better that way. Some of the best, some of the best horror shows, some of the best horror films, tropes, everything came from 20 some odd minutes in a Twilight Zone episode or Outer Limits.
Let that all be inspiration to all those artists out there in the world, folks. A ginormous idea starts out small. Same ways that revolutions do. Fight the power, guys.
Fight the power. Again, this is about police ending up in a hell loop. Is there any more appropriate thing at the moment?
Yeah, that is just too funny. I didn't realize it until it is, and like literally like 10 minutes into the film, like, oh, this is too funny. I can't wait to bring this up.
Yeah.
So. I just had to finish the film to bring it up to you. Like, oh, that's genius.
So with things that are going on, we got a double feature night. But if you're only catching this one,
I'm standing for the whole set.
Hey man, everybody's got their own thing. We want to thank y'all for tuning in. Again, today was Baskin. We'll be following
Peace,
up
love, prosperity
with our next one. Please, Black Lives Matter. Make sure you're writing for the right things. Hopefully, it doesn't go so terrible.
You know what? Yeah, if you got one, this is our fucking platform. We do what the fuck we want.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Leave the folks out there with one statement. You can tell the world about what's going on right now. Just give them one thing to say. Inspire them.
One thing to say? Burn it down, but make sure you're burning down the right thing. I'd rather burn down a governor's mansion than burn down some business that needs to survive in a time we still have a pandemic going on at the same time. Just that's all that. Burn the right thing. Burn it down. Just make sure you're burning the right thing.
And mine is, if you don't know what to do, if you don't get it, start the dialogue, man. Just talk to people. Talk to people. Keep talking. You're gonna learn a lot. Just taking that cultural anthropology approach to life. That's what I would encourage folks to do. If you don't know,
now you know.
There's plenty of people who want to talk about it. Trust me.
Yep.
Hit me up. I'll be glad to talk to you about it.
Word. This has been Brother Sip and Talk Shit.
I can't
In
wait to
crazy
start
times.
watch number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is gonna be great. We'll discuss the next upcoming ones in the other one. Have a great good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is.
And peace, love, prosperity always.
Hey man, Black Lives Matter, man. Keep that shit going. So somehow this episode is gonna be the only one that has like deleted scenes at the end of it.
because there was. Are you filming? Are you recording right now?
Yeah, I might as well.
Okay. All right, we're gonna try to do this in like 2 minutes or less. But there was 3 things for whatever reason. I wrote them down, and I was trying to do this so like off the top of my dome, not go back to it. But I'm gonna say the best for last. The first one was all this frog stuff. All I could think of that was scary were nematodes. Like I was thinking, when was frog scary ever in my American life?
That's
nematodes.
crazy.
Number 2, there was all this like incentive around sex, and it makes me be like want to practice abstinence and be like, fuck the pleasure. I don't want anything to do with it ever again.
Yeah, that's the name, the sex room.
Yeah, and then this last one is just too beautiful. There is a scene where the cops are shooting, and he shoots so poorly as if he was trained.
Oh, he just busted off like some crazy, like almost shot himself in the foot.
No composure.
It was just
There's
awful.
no composure, no steady hand. He's just like firing randomly at these creatures, and it's just like, bro, where's the training? Aren't you guys professionals?
Again, that was Baskin by Can't Ever Know. We didn't say his name either, but we got it there. All right, delete his seat.
Delete the season.
Oh, man, we gotta laugh in the midst of all that. All right, peace out, brother. Sip and talk shit again.